Hello, hello, hello. Hi there.
Hey, Jonathan, how are you today?
I'm good. Hi, Nadine. How are you?
I'm okay. I would love to be outside or at least looking outside right now, though. It is beautiful out there.
I got the chance to walk a little bit a few minutes ago, and it was so nice. And it was totally not um totally not the day to be wearing this hoodie. It's warm.
Yeah, it's a lot colder in here than it is out there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, welcome everyone to another Askable Adults Live, the show where we talk all things sex ed, community, and why get tested. But before we continue, we would like to make our usual acknowledgments and recognitions, and that is that Black Lives Matter. And since we are on that topic, Black trans lives also matter. And I don't know. Today I read something in the newspaper, and is that in Arkansas they banned. Last week we talked a little bit about that. They veto a law that they were trying to pass to ban transgender. No, I'm sorry. It was the one that was veto was um, to stop youth or pretty much anyone to get gender reaffirming care. So woohoo, there's still work, and I'm still worried for certain things. But the thing that really excites me, and I share this with Nadine, is that they were trying to pass something similar for to ban girls and women, trans girls and trans women from sports and
In Pennsylvania, right?
in Pennsylvania, yes. And Governor Wolf said, that ain't happening here. I will veto that if they try to pass that. And Senator Muth, I think I'm probably butchering that name. Um, but they share some words, and of course some of those words, and the senator from Berks said, the problem are not trans women and trans girls um, in sports. Is the problem is that they are unfunded. They don't have the same coverage in media as male center sports, and stop putting the problem where it's not. So, woo!
Yeah,
That gives me hope.
yeah, that's pretty exciting.
It is. It is. But anyway, who's this person that is with me here?
Hey, hey. My name is Nadine. I am the community liaison with Berks Teens Matter. I'm very excited because tomorrow I'm actually going to get to be out in the community doing something with live people in 3D at an information fair and event. I know it's like a rare experience. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. My pronouns are they and their, and I am happy to be here with this amazing guy tonight. Yes, you.
Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
right there. You. Who are you?
So my name is Jonathan Rodriguez. I use he, him, and el pronouns, and I'm the Youth and Health Resource Center coordinator for Berksins Matters. And I will not be in the.
You will not.
I will not be tomorrow outside, but that doesn't mean that people cannot contact me at the HRC. And if you have any questions, or or you know someone that will benefit from the services of the Health Resource Center, please let us know. And all the information is on our Facebook and Instagram. So
And it's precisely because you will be at the Health Resource Center that you will not be
exactly,
outside with me.
exactly.
Um, yeah,
But it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
I know. You'll be okay. I'll
And
tell you all about it.
and talking about being okay, a lot of people want to know if they are okay to do certain things. and that's why they get tested.
Tested.
Yeah.
And we are not talking about COVID testing, are we?
No, we are not. Although a lot of people want to make sure that they are okay, and because they may suspect that they have COVID and they want to get tested. So hopefully all those people will be okay. But as many of you know or might know, Bergstein's Matters is an initiative of Cook County Wellness Services, which has been around for quite some time, since 1985, actually. All Cook County services are offered to the community free of charge. In among the most well-known of Cook County services are the HIV and STD counseling and testing. And part of the counseling aspect is making sure that people have the chance to talk about what might have put them at risk of an infection, so they can think together with the counselor about strategies that might work to help them reduce their risk of infection. And I just also want to mention that April is a Get Yourself Tested month. So it's an amazing month to talk about this.
Yes, it is. It's the perfect month to be talking about this. And that whole thing about the counseling piece and talking to the counselor and thinking about strategies that might work, that's like a really important piece, right? Because when you think about it without talking about it, sometimes it leads people to believe they're not at much great risk or that they're at much higher risk. So things can kind of get, I know from my own experience, not just about this, but about anything, that if you're just thinking about it and you're not talking about it, things can get all kind of tangled up and jumbled up inside this little brain of mine. So really being able to talk it through with somebody who's going to keep your information confidential, somebody who's not going to be judging you, but is really only there to help you make some choices for yourself about how much risk you are or are not taking and how much risk you're really comfortable continuing to take going forward. That is just like a huge service, and it's, as Johnathan mentioned, free, like pretty much all of our services.
Yeah, and there are certainly many times in my life that when I really could have used someone to help me think things through like that, and especially if they are free. So it's a win all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless, I guess, if you actually test positive for something, that might not so much feel like a win. But in my mind, I think of it as being a win anyway, even if you test positive for something, because it's really better to know. If you know that you have an infection, then you're going to have access to treatment. And in most cases, that treatment is free. We might get into more about that later or later this month. Anyone that you have been in contact with who might also have an infection, because obviously if you've got an infection, you got it somewhere. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. So there must be at least one other person who might also have an infection. And you can reach out to them and tell them that they need to get tested too.
Yep. And to be clear, we aren't talking about absolutely everyone you have been in contact with. Just anyone that a person may have engaged in some sort of sexual behavior within the last period of time. And sexual behavior is defined as anal sex, anal, oral, or vaginal sex. So pretty much, I've had this conversation with people with through my life that they get a little bit concerned or even scared about getting tested because in their minds is what if something comes up, what if I have something, and my response has always been the same. Well, it's better to know and be able to take action than not know and have consequences, which I don't necessarily like that word. But I prefer taking action before something big happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really true because you're right. I mean, if you're really thinking about it and thinking about maybe the risks that you might have taken, it can be pretty scary to think about what if I have something. But getting tested or not isn't going to change whether you have something. You know,
Exactly.
um, if you've if you're infected with something, if you have some kind of a virus or a bacteria or whatever in your system, it's there whether you find out about it or not. The big difference is that you can take care of it by getting treatment, getting care, and maybe making some choices to do some things a little bit differently, so that you don't have to worry about that in the future.
Mhm.
Um, but there can also be reasons, Johnathan, that sometimes people might not want to be the one to share that news with. Like, I might not want to come up to you and say, "Hey, Johnathan, um, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but maybe you should get yourself tested for STIs or HIV or STIs, including HIV." Yes, I mean, I might feel like a little bit ashamed of telling somebody that, or I might feel a little bit concerned about how they might react, for one reason or another. There just could be a lot of reasons that I don't want to be the one to deliver the message. So if I know that there's other people that are at risk because I test positive for something and I don't want to be the one to let them know that they should get themselves tested, how does that get handled?
Something that we always say when we're screening someone for STIs, we always say that it's free, it's confidential, and it's private. And the only people that or the only way that we will tell someone or inform someone is actually to the Department of Health. Uh, and is this Department of Health of Pennsylvania in this case the one that will take care of being the messenger? Basically, they are trained to do that in a way that will keep the name of the person who tested positive to any of the STIs out of the picture, and they will simply let a person know that there is a reason to believe that someone they were in contact with has tested positive for X or Y, and they will encourage that individual or individuals to be tested. So they still will maintain confidentiality, and will leave every name, every person out of the picture, but they will need that information. So the person who tested positive will have to tell the contact information to the Department of Health.
Okay, so like if I test positive for something, somebody from the Department of Health isn't going to come saying, knocking on somebody's door and say, "Hey, you know that Nadine down at Coe County Wellness or wherever if I were you, I'd stay away from her." They're not going to say something like that, right?
No, they won't. They only will contact the person, and in a very with a lot of tact and empathy. They will let them know that they probably were in contact with someone that might of might have been tested positive. So it might be a good idea to get tested too.
Cool.
And it probably will be almost a cycle, because if that person tested positive, then they will tell, okay, how many sexual partners did you have? Do you have any do you have their contacts, so we can contact them? So
And,
pretty much something that goes on and on.
and that's really the way we keep our community safe and healthy, as much as people are able and willing to share that information. Um,
Exactly.
one of the things that I've found sometimes is that people, just any of us being human, sometimes we can get a little confused about the benefits of being tested, because sometimes we live with a little bit of, um, they call it denial.
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes our minds will play tricks on us. And I know sometimes for myself, like that peanut butter chocolate thing that I ate last night before I went to bed. You know, that when our minds want to play tricks on us and say it's okay because it's healthy because it has peanut butter in it and doesn't really have sugar in it. I just want to play along with. That's true. It's healthy. It's organic. It's all right.
That comes from a plant,
Yeah,
or a tree or
exactly.
something.
So we like to play along, and that I see that transfer over into testing, because sometimes I know that when people get tested, they think because they tested, like they might be really anxious about the idea of getting tested, and they might be concerned about, like we said earlier, like they're afraid to find out if they test positive for something. So they have that fear there. But then when they get tested, then sometimes if their tests are negative and they're not infected with anything, then they might say, hey, doing good. Let's just keep going the way that we're going. Um, and think that just because they're not testing positive for anything today, that means that they don't have to worry about testing positive and they can just continue whatever behaviors might have been putting them at risk in the first place.
Yeah, in that there's a little bit of there's a trick in there that we will address in a little bit, but also, for example, if a person is monogamous, meaning that they only have or they only engaging in any type of sexual behavior mentioned, anal, oral, or anal, or anal, oral, or vaginal, with only one individual, and that individual is also monogamous, only engaging in sexual behavior with them, and that person also has tested negative for sexually transmitted infections, including HIV, then yes, they can also be good to go. But also, in the other hand, if a person is engaging in any sexual behavior with one or more persons, and that person might be engaging in any other sexual behaviors with other people, then, well, then that's when also things start to get complicated. But even if a person is monogamous, sometimes it's not a bad thing to also get tested, not because you can a person can get tested can get infected by a toilet seat or anything like that, but sometimes I even recommend for the experience, because even if it's once, because I think that's part of kind of going down with the or breaking that um not prejudice, but that stigma of
Stigma.
tested. Because if you haven't, if you're not in any risk, why suddenly you're feeling a little bit of that concern, or that what if? So I think it's a very important experience to be able to relate to other people and to kind of have that empathy with other people.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Jonathan. And I know a lot of people that have done exactly that, especially when it came. You were pretty young when all this was happening, but early on in the HIV pandemic, people who were volunteering around HIV, it used to be strongly encouraged for them to go through that process. And I know plenty of people who went and got tested for HIV, and even though they had been in a monogamous relationship with just one person who was only with them for many, many years, still that concern creeped up as you're waiting for your test results and things like that. And it's a really healthy experience to have because it helps you understand why sometimes people may be hesitant to get tested. It helps you understand what people are going through when they do get tested for any STI. It doesn't have to be HIV or really for any condition as far as that's concerned. When people go through testing and they're waiting and wondering and their mind starts to wander to worst case scenarios, it's just really good way to really learn how to empathize with people for sure.
Exactly.
Um,
And
so go ahead, Jonathan.
no, in the case that a person may have been at risk, testing works as a secondary prevention strategy, because being tested doesn't keep a person safe from becoming infected. It is something at this point in time information. So it's to let you know whether you are, or a person is infected at that point in time. And it's very important to take into consideration that because some STIs, or like any other virus or bacteria, they take time to incubate. So, for example, if a person is concerned about having been exposed to HIV, it will take up to 3 months because for it to be detected with the tests. So some other tests might detect it sooner, but not in the same day or even the same week of infection. And this is what we call the window period. So a lot of people are what we've been saying. They felt relief because I might have been I might have been taking certain risks, but I got tested and I'm okay. But remember that there is a window period for pretty much all the different STIs, and all the window periods are different. Some are 2 weeks, some are 3 months. So a person that knows that they are taking certain risks should should take testing a little bit serious, and being informed also on how much time they should be getting tested.
Yeah, that's really valuable information for people to have, that whole window period thing, and that a test today, it's a point in time piece of information. And then sometimes, like we were talking before about how we offer a counseling component to help people think about their risks and such when they come to get tested here. And sometimes people might, for lots of different reasons, just like any other health thing, like when it comes to diet and exercise and all that kind of stuff, smoking, all those kinds of things. Sometimes people just aren't really ready necessarily to make a change in their behaviors. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's like a waste of time to come get tested if you're not ready to make any kind of a change. And that's where that whole secondary prevention strategy comes in, because, if I'm infected with something and I come to get tested, first of all, I can then get treatment for whatever I might be infected with, which is then going to reduce or eliminate the chance that I pass whatever infection I have onto somebody else. So that's a way of prevention. Just getting tested, knowing my status, and being treated, or having treatment. And then also, as you were talking earlier about that whole thing with the contact tracing, where the people from the Department of Health can reach out to people and say, somebody that you have been in contact with may have tested positive. Good idea for you to get tested, all that stuff. That's another way that my being tested would offer some prevention to the greater community in terms of getting other people notified of that, getting other people tested, treated, and those kinds of things. So it's great if you come to be tested and you can make even the smallest change that's going to reduce your risk. But in a way, getting tested, even though it doesn't eliminate your risk, it does reduce risks in the community, because it reduces your risk of passing things on to other people going forward, and it reduces the risk of other people who might be infected passing it on, because they too then can get access to treatment and testing and all that good stuff.
Exactly. So if there is a lesson to be learned in the best of all possible worlds, we will all always make decisions about our behavior that will keep us safe and free of sexually transmitted infections. But the reality is that we are human, and sometimes our decision-making process goes a little offline, and we take a risk that exposes us to something infectious like virus, bacteria, etc. And then sometimes that exposure resorts on in us becoming infected. So if we are taking risks with our sexual behavior, that could potentially be infectious for our own health and the health of the people taking that we are taking these risks with. We should get tested for some people that might be being tested for once in their lives, although it's recommended for once a year. But for others, that might mean that being they should be tested every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. It may sound like a lot of testing, but really the bottom line takeaway is if you take a risk, take a test. And if you want to reduce your risk going forward, talk to a prevention counselor or talk to somebody at the health resource center. Yeah, because talking to somebody is going to help you think about the things you might be able to do or you might be willing to do to either reduce or eliminate your risk. You can make an action plan, and it's all, I mean, the benefit is all for your own health going forward.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And when we talk about risks, risks like having unprotected sex, especially if it's with multiple partners, something that I like to always bring to the table, not having a good communication with people, with the sexual partners, people who may be in unhealthy relationships where one of the partners doesn't like condoms or but doesn't like to engage in a safer sexual behavior in terms of be in a monogamous relationship or in a relationship that even if it involves multiple people, then there's communication between them. So there's accountability too, so they can keep each other in check. And it's like you're doing, if we are three people that are engaging in sexual behavior, then the three of us, need to be communicating constantly, because if not, then that's the risks start raising. But if this information is good to have or is good for everyone to have, how does it apply to an askable adult? Because that's what we're doing here. But remember that this is not a big conversation or a conversation at random that parents or any adult is gonna have with random teenagers in their lives. This is a big conversation that it probably started a long, long time ago. Sometimes it's just talking about their own personal experience, if that's something that they feel comfortable, or what it means is returning to a conversation that started a couple of years ago. For example, naming the body parts. And Nadine, you came with an example of the HPV vaccine, right? Because this is not a vaccine that a person that is 30 years should be taking. This is a vaccine that is better if they're putting it in younger years, right?
Right, exactly. And so, like, just like you were saying, Jonathan, you don't want to have like sit down with a young person and have like the A to Z sex ed talk like in one afternoon and then be done with it. It should be conversations that are going on little by little over time. And so the HPV vaccine is like one really good example, I think, because yes, it's younger people. I forget the exact age range actually, Jonathan, but it's like just in like what I don't like this word, tween into early teen years, that we should be thinking about having HPV vaccines because you want to actually have that before you become sexually active. And so that's an opportunity really to talk to young people about some things they have to be thinking about as far as their own health care, as they're growing and maturing and getting to a point where they will become sexually active. HPV is one thing that can be transmitted sexually, but there are other things too, and we don't have vaccines for everything. So that's just like a good opportunity to kind of start conversations about the importance of um, infection for sexually transmitted infections. And again, you don't have to have that whole conversation at one point. You might just name the HPV as something that can be sexually transmitted. There are other things that can be transmitted that way. And it's important to know that this is something that we can talk about. And, if and when you feel you need to do anything related to being screened or tested or want more information, like I'm somebody that you can talk to.
and and maybe 11 or 12-year old, which is when the vaccine is administered, might get a little like, why am I getting this if this is for something that I'm not gonna do,
Yeah,
or
I'm never going to do that.
I'm
Oh,
never
no.
gonna do that. But it's good to have a conversation about that, because it's like, well, maybe you won't, but maybe you would. You're going to. So in early adolescence is the best is the best age to get it. Although 11 to 12 is
The
the
recommended is that the
yeah, the recommended. Even starting at the age of 9 years, your children can actually get the vaccine. And it's important to get it around that age, because it starts decreasing over time. So for example, at 18 years of age, that vaccine is already pretty decreased. And it's not even recommended for anyone older than 26, because it really will not be as effective. And that's something that a person can actually, a parent or an Askable adult can have that conversation with a teen. We're doing this because this is to protect your future, and since you're having now, you don't necessarily have to, not that you don't have to worry about it, but it's something that you're going to be protected. And there's a lot of people that not necessarily are, because when the vaccine came out, they already were of age, or they didn't get it for any other reason. So it's something for the future. Basically, we are investing in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those many conversations. As I'm listening to you, I'm just thinking it's one of those many conversations to help young people think about, just because this protects against this doesn't mean it protects against that. So this vaccine protects against HPV, doesn't prevent against everything. Just like, condoms can prevent against infections and also pregnancy, the birth control pill, or some other birth control methods like the patch and etc. Can protect against pregnancy, but they're not going to protect against disease. So it's, there can be lots of little conversations about those kinds of things, about what things protect against, what they don't, and the decisions that we make to keep ourselves safe.
Exactly. And with that, our best advice is to not come from a place of fear when having these conversations, telling people that they are going to make the wrong decision. But remember that our role as Askable adults is to support everyone else, especially the young people in our lives, with the tools and resources that they need and deserve to make informed decisions about their own health. Remember, it's less about us and more about them. So so if you or anyone that you know is interested in having counseling or even getting tested, remember that you can either follow Cognitive Wellness Services on Facebook, or you can make appointments calling the 610-375-6523. And maybe if I'm here and you want a rapid HIV test, I can be the one to administer, and we can talk.
And in particular, I mean, really almost anybody at any age can do this. But when it comes to the Health Resource Center, let me just add a little extra pitch that if you're between the ages of 13 and 19 and you don't really have a need or aren't thinking about getting tested, but just would like to talk to somebody about anything related to healthy relationships and healthy sexuality, Johnathan is the guy in the Health Resource Center.
Exactly. So please follow us in all of our social medias. Thank you for being here, and I encourage everyone to follow us next week because we're gonna have a guest. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and if you have any questions for our, and I have the paper here because it is troublesome for me to say this word, for phlebotomist.
That was well. You did it.
Thank
That's
you.
good.
Where's my gold medal? So if you have any questions for a phlebotomist,
Yes.
or guest, which is an amazing person and a truly amazing professional, please let your comments, let your questions, or send it through our DMs. We're gonna check them out, and we'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye bye.